Hi, I want to preface this video really quick with saying that if you have a basic understanding of HTML and how to use VS Code and basic understanding of how the web works with index.html and how the browser loads files by default and localhost and ports, then you can skip this video. This is a very basic overview of what we're trying to do here. If you understand all this stuff like IDs and basic HTML and Bootstrap, even if you don't understand Bootstrap, you can just skip ahead. This is just a very brief introduction video to those things. All right, thanks, and I'll see you in the video. All right, and welcome back. So hopefully you downloaded the Visual Studio Code IDE, and you have that all installed. If you haven't done that, pause the video and do that now. Also, one more thing you're going to need is in the description, there will be a link to download this basic post app.zip. You're going to want to download that, and also make sure you have a way to unzip it. I'm not sure if Windows actually has a way by default to unzip .zip files, but I use WinRAR, which is a program that I suggest that every developer should have as well. It's just great to have when you use Windows, even if you're not a developer. So once you have that downloaded, as well as this file itself, go ahead and open it, and it'll open right here, and we can just go ahead and close that dialog if you have that, and drag it out to our desktop. And now we can go ahead and delete this if you want. You don't have to, but I'm going to keep it because I got to upload it to file storage service so you guys can download it. So, basic post app. Now, what we could do is go ahead and open Visual Studio Code down here, like I have it pinned to my taskbar, and then search for the folder in there. But what I'm going to do is show you a little quick thing. If you left-click it to select the folder, and then right-click, you can click Open with Code. And now we can open it with code. And now we have our folder, our project directory is the main directory for this, this project. It's that folder. And inside that folder, we have an index.html. Now, as I've said, and you just left click to open it, as I've said, this isn't an HTML course, so you don't need to know anything about HTML. This is just basic HTML and basic Bootstrap 4. Bootstrap is just an HTML framework, well, technically a CSS framework. It allows you to easily use classes to create a website, basically with just classes, without having to go into custom HTML. So if I go ahead and launch it, you can see there's just like basic stuff here. There's a few things missing from the last video, but that's because we're going to add them in later. The app doesn't work currently because there's no JavaScript. This is just the visual side. We're going to remove this test post later and add things in dynamically, but this is the basis of the app. So let me guide you through a little bit of the basis of the HTML before I get started. And then we're also going to go into some of the plugins you should download for VS Code. So first up, basic header, and then you have the body. All the stuff goes into the body. Everything you're going to write, basically. There's a few things like I linked Bootstrap, which is a framework, in here. That's where you put it. The title is the text that appears at the top of the browser when you open up the web page. And then this is all mostly Bootstrap and stuff. So up here is my post app. Then this is the input for adding posts. There's a couple of breakpoints to move things down. Then a horizontal rule, which is a line. Then the my post. This is the section where it's going to display all the posts. This should not be here. That was a test. Then we have a list group and then some list items. And this is where we put in all our HTML dynamically. This is where we add all our posts. So you see ID posts. That we have IDs so that way we can grab things. I'm going to talk a little bit about IDs in a bit as well. So this is the basis of where we're going to put all our posts. So later, this is going to be empty. For right now, it's not. Just so we could have something to show. I'm going to go through the basics of HTML before we even really get into any of this. Down here is our script tag, app.js. Now, we don't currently have an app.js file. All we have in this folder is index.html. But what this means is it's going to, when you open up the HTML file, it's going to search for a script. It's going to search for a script that is the source of app.js. So it's going to search for a file in this current directory, because the link of app.js is in this current directory. It's going to search for a file called app.js. We don't have that. We just have index.html. So one thing we can do really quickly is we can go ahead and click right here, click New File, right under Basic Post App Project. And we can just type app.js. So that's app.javascript. That's what app.js means. It's app.javascript. You can name it anything. You can name it script.js. You can name it test.js. You can name it anything you want as long as you have the .js, and as long as it's consistent with this name and this name, it'll be fine. All right, so this is the basis of JavaScript. We're not going to touch it just yet. We're going to go back to the HTML, like I said. So we're going to go a bit over IDs. So the reason why some things have IDs on them. So classes are just a way for you to add basically like styling and things to a bunch of different elements. So you see how there's list group item for every single LI, for every single list item, for every single post we have, it's all going to have these same classes, so they all look the same. As for ID, you can also add styling to it, but an ID can only be added to one element in a single HTML page. So mainly what people use it for, and what we're going to use it for in this project, is for selecting items, because in JavaScript, we need to have a way to identify a single element. So this would be an element, a button element. Then we have an input element. So you see how we have the ID of post-text, and then button is post-add. So the idea is, with JavaScript, we can get the input value by using the basically the what's in the text box. So what the user wants to add as a to-do by using the post-text ID, and then we can listen for when they add the post, for when they want to add the post by clicking the post button, by creating a list event listener using this post-add ID. And then down here, we also have ID for posts. That's how we're going to add posts to the HTML and create new elements later in JavaScript. So that's what IDs are mainly used for, at least in this project. Most of the time in web development, you're not really going to use them unless it's like, you're never going to use a certain element for, again, for styling. It's just not really a good thing to do for styling. It's better to use classes most of the time. But you can use IDs if you know it's going to be like, if you have like the title of your site, like, and it's going to be in a specific way, you could just use an ID. There's really no reason why, but there's also, it's just up to you. So that's the basis of that. Now, as for a few things, let's give you a bit of an introduction to Visual Studio Code. It's a very simple IDE, but up here is a way to click to Explorer that toggles what's up here, like toggles the your directory for your projects and open files. Over here is a search bar. You just search for things in here. This is Git support, source control. This is your debugger, and down here is extensions, and this is what we want right now. So I'm going to collapse the recommended, but there are some extensions I have. You don't need all of these, but I suggest getting a few. There's one you should probably get, which is Live Server. So Live Server, what it does is it creates a button down here in the bottom right, that says Go Live. So what it is, if you have an HTML file and you have a server, what you would normally have to, or you have an HTML file and you have an app.js, what you'd normally have to do is you'd have to go into your folder and you'd have to launch the HTML with a default browser, and then you'd have it in here. And this is your HTML. The problem is, though, if you make changes to your HTML, as you see here, let's say I add a H1 that just says test, and I save it, nothing changes yet, and I have to refresh. I just click Control-R. I had to refresh for that to pop up. And if I remove it and save, as you can see, it's like an X up here. That means it's saved. If it's not saved, there'll be a circle. So I saved it again. You can see it doesn't change. So I have to come up here and have to click refresh for it to disappear again. So what happens when we do Go Live is, instead of opening the file itself, as you can see here, it just says the URL basically for your browser. It's the URL that points to that file. What we do is go down here, we click Go Live, and it says starting a server. Now there's an IP. So it's using your local, it's using a local IP. This is basically the same. 127.0.0.1 is an IP address. It's basically the same as saying localhost. And then there's a specific port, so 5500. So right now it's running on port 5500. Sometimes you're going to have different ports. A lot of times people use 3000. Nothing's running on 3000 for me. Sometimes things like Angular will use 4200. That's a JavaScript framework. Nothing there. So we're just going to go back to 5500. So ports are basically, I don't know too much about ports, but the basic understanding I have, take this with a grain of salt, is that it allows you to run multiple network, I guess, this is such a weird way to say it, but it allows you to run multiple things over the same IP address. Basically. Very basic overview of what a port is. Nothing. I haven't really I don't really know exactly. So just if you don't know that, that's very basically what it is. I would suggest looking further into it if you want a better answer, because I haven't really looked into it. And then slash the file, so slash index.html. That's basically right now it's just the folder. So localhost 5500 points to this. I wonder. I'm gonna try something really quick. I don't know if that'll work. Okay, so that works. So right now, so by default, I want to show you something as well. I was able to remove index.html because by default, when you have when you're in a web browser, and you go to a specific file or something, or like a folder or a port or something like that, a website, index.html, specifically the name index.html, is a consistently used name that means that this is the index of this port. So for example, if I go to my website, actually, very quickly, I don't have to do /index.html. If I did /index.html, it would take me to the same file because my homepage is an index.html. I apologize for that. Ignore that. My creepy face. No. So by default, you don't have to go to /index.html because it automatically assumes, well, okay, there's an index.html file, so if the user is going to TrystonPerry.com, aka localhost 5500, the homepage, it's just going to assume, okay, let's just send it. Now, if we had /dogs, for example, and then we went in here and did a new folder and called it dogs, now there's nothing there, but if we pressed enter, it gives us the directory. And if there was an index.html in here, let's just go ahead and do a quick index.html. Oh, that is a folder. My bad. Let's just do a quick file index.html, and then we just quickly opened that with code and just typed test, and then we refreshed. Now we get test. That's it. Now if we did /dog/index.html, it'll be the exact same file. You see it refreshed? We got the exact same thing, and if we just go back to localhost, it's still there. So that's a very basic overview of the web that I wanted to give. Like I said, this isn't a web development course, really. It's just a JavaScript, but I wanted to give this preface to this video just so you have a bit of understanding. So that's what live server does. I'm going to go ahead and close all these things because we don't need them anymore. I'm going to go ahead and close that out and stop the port. You can come down here and you can stop. Another way to open it up is sometimes you won't see go live in here. But make sure that when you click go live, or you want to go live, you're in your index.html, your main homepage. You can also right click and click open with live server. You can also click stop live server. We're already stopped, so I'm not going to do that. So that's live server. Another one I suggest getting is bracket pair colorizer. So what that allows is normally is you can come in here and you can add different types of parentheses and brackets, and they're all different. They're all color coded specifically in JavaScript and probably other programming language files, but I just use it for JavaScript mainly, and it makes code later when you have very advanced code much more readable. As for now though, that's basically it, and that's it for this video. In the next video, we're gonna hop into this JavaScript file and we're gonna show you the ropes, the very basics of JavaScript. So yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.